how would you define innovation? Basically, it's just getting shit done.
Hello, and welcome back to this episode of KIIPSODES. My name is April, and today we will be discovering more about Fiume with the other co-founder, Michael Seddon. Michael is the CTO and co-founder of Fiume, and as CTO, his responsibilities include driving innovative solutions to ensure the success of Fiume's initiatives. In this episode, Michael will be introducing natural language processing and giving his insights onto how he believes this AI will become more prominent in the legal industry.
Cool, thank you. Hi, good morning or good afternoon, depending on when and where you're listening to this. And thank you, April, for the introduction, and Kips for having me on the show today. Today's session is going to focus on an introduction to natural language processing. Before we get started, and in case you haven't seen the previous episodes from my co-founder, Mirko, and if you haven't, please check them out, they're great. I'd like to introduce Fiume and say a little bit about myself. So we are Fiume. We're machine learning specialists, and together we've got over 30 years of industry experience. As a company, we're focused on the legal, energy, pharma, and insurance industries, and we truly believe the value of data and AI, so much so that we decided to start a company to promote it. Everything that we do at Fiume is focused on delivering business value with AI and data, but that's a spiel for another time. So let's start with me. Hi, I'm Michael. I've been a software engineer for a decade and a half now, and I'm honestly not too sure where the time has gone. I've worked all over the world in loads of different industries, and I was introduced to big data, AI, machine learning as a natural progression through my career. So if you're watching this or any of the other episodes and worrying that you don't have a background in AI or maths or even computing, don't worry. AI, all it takes is, an interest in this stuff, and it's totally possible to pick it up. So enough about me. Let's get started. NLP. Well, what is it? Well, if you've ever done a search for NLP or natural language processing on the internet, you'll have seen this quote by J.R. Firth: "You shall know a word by the company it keeps." And basically that's going to go down in history as NLP's code word. Basically, it's everywhere. But what is NLP really? Well, NLP is the intersection between machine learning and linguistics. It's an approach to enabling machines to hear, to see, to process, and to ultimately understand and replicate human language. You've definitely had interactions with NLP Driven Systems if you've ever used Siri, Alexa, Google, or basically interacted with the world in any kind of way in the last 10 years. NLP drives loads and loads of different applications and tasks, from personal assistants and chatbots to translations to document summarizations to even those horribly annoying voices at the end of the phone when you're trying to get through to your bank. It's everywhere. But going a little bit further, what is NLU? What is NLG? Well, NLU is natural language understanding. And whilst the concept of natural language programming itself can be traced back to the 1960s, where computer programmers, they were experimenting, with simple language input, natural language understanding began developing in about the 1960s out of, a desire to get computers to understand more complex language and its input. Natural language understanding is, a subtopic of NLP. It's focusing on getting machines to comprehend natural language, getting to understand what a text really means or understand what a voice really means. And it's often quite helpful to view natural language understanding as the first step towards achieving NLP. Before a machine can process language, obviously it needs to first understand it. And so, in essence, natural language understanding uses algorithms to reduce or to process human language into a structured format that can then be further operated on by a machine. Some real-world examples of NLU range from really small basic tasks like actions issued from a natural command like, hey, Alexa, please purchase my Christmas presents for me, or rerouting an email based on the topic to the right person in support, or aiding legal discovery with the tasks by using the context around what the lawyer is trying to search on, for example. Reading legal contracts and pulling out important dates or numbers or people or anything is substantially faster and hopefully more accurate than what a human can do. And using NLU-based tools is always with respect to augmenting the person or augmenting the lawyer. So it's assisting with these kind of tasks. Next, we have NLG, or natural language generation. And it might surprise you that NLG focuses on the generating of natural language. So more specifically, what this means, it's the process of producing meaningful phrases and sentences in the form of natural language. And in essence, it's automatically either describing, summarizing, explaining, translating some kind of input data in a human-like way. So that means NLG, or natural language generation, can be used for a whole range of different tasks, from automatic content summarization to generating a contact template for a real estate deal, or even drafting a well-pleaded legal complaint based on a machine-determined structure, to even writing entire news articles. I'm not sure if you've seen all of the scary hype and news around, machines now are going to be publishing loads and loads of fake news, but before there's any questions under this or comments or emails, lawyers aren't going to be replaced by computers anytime soon. So don't worry about that. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So how then does it all work? Well, there's two approaches for natural language processing. The first is a rule-based system. These kind of systems are created manually by very clever and very patient linguistic experts, subject matter or legal technology experts, essentially people who really know their stuff about the domain that they're operating in. If you've ever heard of concepts such as regular expressions, or basically pattern matching, then that's a great example of a rule-based NLP system. Rule-based approaches are low precision in that they are very much focused on the specific thing that they have been made to do. I mean, it makes sense because they're based on rules. What that means, though, is that they often don't perform when they're applied to things that they don't expect, or examples that don't fit an expected pattern. A good example of this is if you were trying to use the same based rules engine natural language processing system which was, say, created to help understand real estate contracts, and then you tried to use the same system to help with litigation cases. Sure, they're both legal things, but the specifics around them are very, very different, and rule-based systems aren't very good at generalizing. So the second approach that we have with NLP systems is machine learning-based models. And machine learning models tend to have training data or examples of what wants to be achieved, and then the model learns based on the examples. If you're thinking, well, these two examples that I've given you for NLP sound familiar, and you're a KIIPSODE viewer, then you're right, because these two approaches are very, very familiar. If you haven't checked out Mirko's episode 1 and 2, I'd highly recommend viewing them because they cover the concepts of machine learning and their approaches. And it's exactly the same way that NLP systems are approached as well. Sometimes we have simple rule-based systems that work very well in if-then-else type scenarios. And otherwise, we have machine learning-based models that learn either based on examples or more complex ideas, which there's no point getting into right now. So when we put all of that together, in order to process natural language, we could come up with a pipeline, let's say, similar to this one. For simplicity's sake, we're trying to deal with some text. We do some stuff to that text, which makes it easier for the machine to process it, like clearing out all of the weird, ununderstandable stuff. And then we go through a standard machine learning process, which we can then input into an algorithm. The output of that algorithm gives us something which we're able to then interpret and then use either in further NLP-based systems, NLG-based systems, or other kinds of NLP type situations. So that's all well and good, but how does NLP apply to the legal profession? I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably a lawyer, or at least based in the legal profession. So how does this impact you? How does this interface with what you do day to day? Well, I've got some examples, and the first one is a great one. It's with respect to court transcripts, and I'm not sure if anybody's ever been involved in a litigation case or been involved in a long-running court proceedings, but these kind of things generate loads and loads and loads of unstructured data. And what I mean by unstructured data is there's probably a court transcript for a single day, which is about 60 pages long. You might have 10 to 12 different people speaking, about 100 different exhibits, referencing loads of dates. It just starts to get really, really complex. What we can do using NLP techniques is start to automatically extract data points. So I could tell you on page 4, witness Y referenced exhibit B. I can start to give you pages where the judge is commenting, or maybe commenting on proceedings or commenting on a general remark. There are witnesses broken down by what day they've spoken on, when they spoke, who they were addressing. Effectively, you can manually process proceedings, or you can automatically process proceedings that manually is substantially involved. It's a thing that, is probably going to take either a trainee lawyer or somebody hours and hours and hours every day. Using advanced NLP techniques, we can also potentially start to detect contradictions between witness statements. So if somebody has said something contradictory one day after another, that could automatically be flagged. It starts to really allow the lawyers to focus on what they're doing best, which is, reviewing evidence, understanding what is being said, and removing the heavy load of the manual processing involved in extracting all of these details. And then, we can start to get a bit more advanced and some cool stuff can start to happen. Next, which is quite an interesting one, is the concept of translation. So translation is a natural target for NLP type systems. And in the legal world, there is a lot of complex legalese used. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a computer guy. And with all of the work that I've done in the legal industry, I really, really struggle to understand sometimes what is even going on. And so a great use case with respect to NLP is translating between and to natural language from legalese. So because we're able to understand the semantics within words, we're able to understand what is being said in the general context, we're able to translate just like we can between actual languages, say English and French or English and Italian. We can translate between legalese and natural language. And what that allows us to do is really reduce the barriers between non-legal people and legal people. It really helps to foster relationships. It makes people less worried about their interactions with the legal industry. And it starts to bring two completely separate worlds together without having to compromise on how those individual worlds work, just like a translator would if you're trying to speak with somebody from another country. It's a really interesting use case, and there are things out there that are already doing this. It's great. It's a fantastic use case for NLP-based systems. Finally, a really recent example is the concept of Libel, or massive repapering exercises. And the sheer volume of documents involved in these kind of exercises is crazy. You've got tens of thousands of documents consisting of hundreds, if not thousands of pages, and you need to go through every single one of them and find a specific fact or a specific thing and update it. So for example, with Libel, manually, sometimes lawyers were having to go through and change the Libel benchmark rates on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of documents with hundreds of pages. So one really clever approach of utilizing NLP is to use some of the techniques based on NLP to extract information points, find out where things live, understand how these documents can be updated, and then do this automatically. Obviously, always with the supervision of a lawyer, but it really takes the onus away from this heavy manual processing into focusing on if the details are right. And just to show that, this isn't all just me talking at a screen and you looking, we at Fiume, as part of a previous engagement, created a scientific paper about long-length legal document classification, which is very relevant to Libel and repapering, where we were able to classify long documents in terms of where they are and what the structure is and what kind of lawyer should be looking at them. So if you're interested, have a Google of this, check it out. It's really, really technical. It's a scientific paper, but somebody might find it interesting. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this has been a calm, nice, easy introduction to NLP and you've learned something. And if you want to know more, either leave a comment or reach out at the email address below. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, for your insights into natural language processing. We hope you'd enjoyed this 3-part series with Fiume covering artificial intelligence. The links to the first 2 parts are in the description box below, along with all our other links. If you would like more bite-sized content like this, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our KIIPS social media to see updates on what we're up to. And we would also love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below telling us what you enjoyed about this video and what you would like us to cover next. Stay tuned for the next episode of KIIPSODES.